All right, I thought I would discuss with you guys and gals today just some basics about how to maximize body composition with your diet and just basic rules of thumb that people need to follow. Again, this is very evidence-based. This is also the way many people eat who are even fitness models, competitive bodybuilders, everyone else, but a lot of recreational people who are fitness enthusiasts eat this way. So again, this is some general guidelines. So our diets do need to be carbohydrate based, but we need to understand that carbohydrates are where we're going to get most of our calories. It's not necessarily always the focus of a diet like this. So when it comes to macros, again, I'm going to recommend people eat clean. And people say you can't define clean. I'm like, yeah, you can absolutely define clean. Clean eating would generally be minimally processed foods. Doesn't mean no processing. That's silly. You're not going to have that. Unless that processing enhances the nutritional value, okay, keep in mind, or improves it, and in some cases it does. Do your research. I'm not going to be able to break that down food for you. Minimally processed, I would say the things you need to completely avoid if you really care about body composition: refined sugars and any form of added fat to anything. Okay? You don't need to be adding fats of any type, even healthy fats. If you want healthy fats, eat whole foods that have them done. Don't add oils, don't add butter. Okay? These are things that are going to be problematic for people who are pursuing, again, maximized body composition. Before the low carb people chime in with butter or whatever, you guys don't maximize body composition. The studies are very conclusive. You gain muscle way, way, way slower than everybody else. Get over it. Done. So your approach isn't even viable for this. And again, I'm not talking about people who cut down using it for contests. I'm talking about people who are trying to overall maximize body composition with their lifestyle year round. All right, added fats are out. Refined sugars are out. Okay, these are the foods that impact your insulin sensitivity most negatively. They will impact your nutrient partitioning most negatively. Right? These are the foods in general that make us fat. Added fats, high fat foods, refined sugars. In fact, you take those out of society in general, there would be almost no fat people anymore. They would cease to exist. Right? So there's your first rules. All right, protein is always going to be something we have to look at. If you are trying to absolutely maximize body composition, you need to hit that amount that we know is the safe spot for intake with wiggle room in it for maximizing muscle growth. It's 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. For my Americans who only use freedom units, that's around 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. If you want to go over that, it's not harmful, but that should be your target number. If you choose to go 50% over it or double it and your budget allows for it, hey, great. Just be aware that may only help you slightly on the body fat side. It will not help you with the muscle growth side. Again, we need to be clear on that. There is an upper threshold to that from what we've seen, even for advanced bodybuilders and strength athletes. That's where that literature comes from, those numbers. So again, don't tell me I train harder than others. No, you don't. You don't train as a full-time job. Therefore, you are not training harder than people in some of those studies. Right? You probably do other stuff. You have a life outside of lifting. I'm going to say the answer is you do not. All right, so that's your number. So if you're like me, because again, I probably weigh more than most of you, I'm 100 kilograms, 220 right now. That's 150 grams right? 150 grams. There's your target number. All right, dietary fat, and people aren't going to like this. If your goal is to stay very lean, I would cap fat at 10% of your total calories. Okay? And the fat that you eat, for that to even work, needs to be mostly healthy fats, polyunsaturated fats. That's omega-3, omega-6. Ideally, I would like to see you get them from whole foods. What do we mean by whole foods? Nuts. I like tofu. All right, fatty fish. Okay? I mean, if you really want your powerhouse, where would be some of our really viable ones? Would be salmon, walnuts. That would be pretty dang good. Tofu still works in that also. It's mostly polyunsaturated with a great amount of omega-3. All right, your fats. Make sure that your fat sources are probably close to half of the calories, fat calories in any fat source you eat comes from polyunsaturated fat. Keep saturated fat low. Okay. Everything else you need needs to be carbohydrates, right? Because you're going to need to track calories. If you care about body composition, you're probably going to have to track calories. Everything else needs to be carbohydrate. It will help build the most muscle. It'll give you the best performance. It'll keep satiety nice and high, as long as they're mostly whole food carbohydrates. White rice is definitely reasonable here. Other than that, though, probably mostly tubers, fruits, whole grains. Right? This is how you should be eating. Your diet should be rich in fruits and vegetables. Okay. As far as the protein goes, I don't care where you get your protein for that. Look, certain protein powders, whey and stuff, are probably better gram for gram. I think there's good data on that. But as long as you're eating decent protein sources, I don't care. Even soy and tofu actually has a great bioavailability. But lean animal products are good. And then dairy does tend to be a little bit superior on a gram for gram basis. But when we start eating quantities like that, like 150 grams or more, protein quality starts to have very, very little impact at all. It starts to matter so little because we're getting so much of it at that point. So again, do what you want. Again, just make sure that you're going to have to watch the fat in your protein sources. But look, if you want to get a sizable chunk of your fat from beans and tofu, perfectly reasonable. If you want to fill it with more animal source, perfectly reasonable. Just watch the saturated fat. Watch the saturated fat on the end of that. All right, and these sort of guidelines will do this. So this is the way that people should generally eat if they are trying to maximize muscle mass and minimize body fat. I'm not saying other approaches can't work for some of those, but if you're trying to do both concurrently, if we look at the larger body of the evidence, this will generally push you in that direction. I'm not saying protein overfeeding can't do the same thing, but you don't always feel good protein overfeeding, for one. Number two, it is prohibitively expensive for most people. Again, eating 400 grams of protein a day in this current economy, probably outside of many people's food budget. Okay? In other words, when that's come up, people are like, well, let me give you a context. My coaching alone per month costs less than protein overfeeding does. Okay, so just so that we're clear on that. Unless you are finding just the cheapest, most junk sources of protein you can probably source. Like the cheapest on sale chicken breast, maybe the cheapest, not highest quality whey you can find is probably the only way most people are going to do that on any sort of tight budget. Because before long, you're spending just for yourself $700, $800, $1,000 a month on food just to protein overfeed. So the other option is actually probably more viable for most people, and very possibly more viable for longevity overall. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.